Whatever you're gonna do, you kept on. Okay, you got it.
Okay, guys, welcome to another meetup. And we have the regular folks here. So I think we'll probably have one more guy joining, the new guy. He said he will join sometime in the middle, so we'll see. Yeah, he's also building something on BSV, and he's from I think in the upper New York, yeah, upstate. Yeah, we'll see. So
cool. I reviewed what we were talking about last time, and I totally figured out what was confusing me about the whole thing. Cool. So in the language, so I just wanted to briefly explain it to you guys if you want.
Yeah, that would be great, because a lot of people having difficulty. It's not the simplest concept, as I have to admit. Yes, always. Right, so it's almost the most popular question for newcomers. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, but anyways, we're looking at that increment function. And so I'm native, my native language is Swift, right? That's the one that I use all the time. And when we have a return value, then you have like a little arrow, and then so the increment function in that sCrypt thing is actually has a return value of true or false, right? Like all sCrypt functions do. But the syntax was the syntax that is actually just for a function without a return call. And so I was looking at it and I forgot that it's gonna automatically return true or false, whatever it is. And then you do the require thing. And so when I was looking at it, it was just so baffling to me, just because of my preconceptions with Swift. So yeah, that's all.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. That's one thing. Okay. I think probably some else that's for newcomers, they maybe find it I would say not trivial to understand. Anything else you would add? Like, what's your mental block for you personally?
Okay. Well, look, I got the idea. I understand the idea. Like, it looks like you have to first start that you're creating these locking and unlocking scripts, right? And so it's like a safety deposit box with the envelope, but the envelope has like a
lock,
programmable seal, lock on it. So when I was making the outline for the video to explain all this, I was trying to use a different metaphor, but I was also trying to fit in with Craig's metaphor. But the better way I like to look at it is it's like the safety security box with a bunch of other safety security boxes in it, right? And those each have it's like one of those locks on it, but it's just code, right? It's like a coded lock. And so anyways, when I was looking at that thing, I understood it, but I didn't. And so, gosh, what I want to do is map this out, because I'm such a visual person. And if I just would show it to you and draw it out, then it would actually, it'd work a lot better, because it's really difficult for me to translate it into language and then express it over Zoom. And then I know that people are watching, so then I get more tense. I can't explain it. Then everybody talks at once. And then you get the echo sometimes. And it's just like my brain goes crazy when I'm trying to communicate on Zoom. But if you give me some time, maybe over the weekend, I'll make a little video expressing where I got confused. So
that'd be great. I think because I think even it's almost like every day people come here and say, oh, what is this thing? Sick hash per image, a push track TX. I think even Stefan, right? You made a very good visual illustration. I think that a lot of people find that helpful, because they just read the words. I think some people are more visual than others. So I think that'd be great especially different people independent come up with a different pictures. So different angles.
Yeah,
I'm the same as Kevin. I have to even for those videos that I made, right? I basically had to sketch out and draw and
I'm pulling that up right now. This is okay. I finally found it.
This
is what helped me. This is your page, Stefan. Can you see it?
Okay. Yeah,
but you took each piece and you said that's the input scripts, that's the output scripts.
Redeem. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you remember that.
Vaguely, it's been about 6 months ago now.
I know.
I
Right?
remember
That's how it
because
was.
yeah, you draw it on the screen. I even asked you what kind of tools you use to like draw on the screen.
Yeah.
Cool.
You just
Yeah,
use a
I-
whiteboard pen. It works every time. You can just draw right on the monitor with the whiteboard pen.
old tech.
Don't actually do that. There's a disclaimer somewhere in there.
Get somebody with a permanent marker going after their monitor.
I'm trying
Okay.
to pull up because I don't know when I just say this stuff, you guys probably don't understand what the syntax of Swift is. But let me show you the syntax of Swift, okay? Oh, I was about to show you the wrong code.
Yeah, you
I'm
can
trying to
share the
pull up some
screen.
code.
If you
No,
want
no.
to share screen, that's fine. Up to you.
Okay, yeah, but I'm on my iPad, so it's on my computer. Okay, but in Swift, there's different functions, right? So this function right here, it has no return value.
Mm-hmm.
This function right here, okay, I'm just making sure I'm not showing you code that's important because I have like the payment thing up here. All right, no, this is fine. Okay, so this code right here has a return value.
Yes.
Return nil, right? Or nil or null? Wait,
Optional
NIL,
string.
is that what that says?
Optional
It's returning a string. Yeah, an
Oh.
optional string. So it could be either nil or it could be a string value.
Okay.
Mhm.
Not a
Does that make sense?
Yes. It's
but
it's like
just
string
ignore
question
what's in here.
Okay.
Just ignore what's in here. I'm
That
just
makes sense.
saying that this is the syntax that I've been using for 5 years.
It's kind of like
That's
TypeScript.
this function has a return value. This type of function does not have a return value.
Mhm.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
when I was looking at the sCrypt, so now hold on. Oh wait, it was okay. So when I was looking at the sCrypt one, which I'll pull up now, it looked like a function that didn't have a return value, and then you were calling increments, and then I was looking at all this other stuff. I'm like, it was just so confusing to me because I was used to that old syntax. But then when I read the formal definitions of, every function in sCrypt returns by default true or false. I forget what it is.
Mhm.
But every public function in sCrypt is a Boolean return value, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
And if it's true, then it unlocks. And if it's false, then it doesn't. And so
Yes.
once I understood that, then it just made sense. But
Okay.
so that's just that's where I was having a misunderstanding, but then everybody just started talking and I was just so lost even at the basic level that it just confused me way more. But I was watching it again, and a lot of the stuff that you said was helpful. But yeah,
Is it
like I said,
Is it clear now for you?
it's clear now. It's
Okay.
becoming, yeah. I mean, I just need to sit down, but you guys don't understand how like I just get, so off on like all these different things. It's really hard for me to focus. And so once I have like a project that's calling me, then I sit down and learn it. But I'll learn it eventually, but I just felt a lot of pressure because I promised that I was going to make some videos to teach sCrypt to beginners, and I just didn't understand it. So, and I still don't, but I'm working on it. Yeah.
Okay. You got a whole new year, so that's good.
Yeah. Well, Stefan did it and they're good. So.
I think Ty also put some, right? So I think, oh no, not you. I think that's another guy. Okay.
Joshua Hensley.
What?
Joshua Hensley. I think Joshua Hensley.
Oh yeah, he
videos
put a
as well.
few. Yeah, and some guy
some
in
good
Florida. I forget the name. But anyway, if you guys produce, I think I put this on record. If anybody produce, I'm going to tip big tips. So that's what I'm saying.
Oh, I better get started.
You should put
Better
the
get back into
payment.
it.
Yeah, put the payment or something. Yeah. a Bitcoin address.
What was I going to say? There are actually a bunch of videos which I don't know if a lot of people know about them, because it looked to me to be a little bit, they're incredibly well done. And this guy deep dives on the math like you wouldn't believe. And I think he is somewhere in Europe, but I've not seen him referenced by anybody anywhere. But I want to give him a shout out. This is F. Geiger.
What is that? What topics?
The Bitcoin.
Videos about?
It's called it's called the Bitcoin Math by this guy F. Geiger, and he's just a monster. He's on YouTube. His channel is the Bitcoin Math.
Okay, never heard about this. Can you share in a Slack channel?
Okay, I'll share the. Oh, in Slack channel. Okay.
Yeah. So we have a
in the thread for the meeting. Okay.
Yes, please. Okay.
Or you could share the screen if that's what you're going to do, because then the people will watch it. I just couldn't share the screen on my iPad, otherwise I would have. I should have done it from my computer. Next time I will.
Okay.
Let me quickly. I'll quickly share my screen. Don't know if you guys can see.
That's awesome.
Bitcoin Math.
Okay.
F. Geiger. Okay. So he's got a lot of stuff in here. And cool. I don't know if anybody recognizes this person because I haven't seen him anywhere. But
is this BTC or BSV?
No, it's BSV.
Oh, BSV.
Yeah, it says
13
top
views.
left.
Wow.
Yeah, top left inside. So and he's a monster, man. Look how much content this guy is putting out.
Wow, man.
That's awesome.
What's his name?
Yeah, put it in the Slack and then I'll
nice.
And then I'll check it out. Because see, the thing is with the videos that I've done is I was already interested in something like this guy is. And I was doing the videos almost as a way of like helping myself learn. It's like that phrase where it's like, if you want to learn something, teach others. And so,
yes.
And so that's what the kind of process that I was going through. But then a lot of people, once my videos started, I got more subscribers. Like everybody and their mom would send me emails. Hey, can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? And I wanted to say yes, but the problem is that I never did those things for any other reason than just like I was sharing what I was interested in. And so to like do a paid promotion for somebody else isn't organic. It's not even possible for me to do because I don't understand the thing that I'm sharing. And so that's why on my YouTube page, I don't know if you've seen it, but I say I'm only promoting things that I find organically. And so once I find something that I'm interested in that I want to promote, then I promote it. But if somebody comes to me and says, do this video and I'll give you money, which I get those on email, maybe like 3 a week, sometimes more if one of the videos becomes popular, then my default answer is no. I always say no. So, but then I was in this weird zone because sCrypt I found organically, and I was planning at some point in the future of doing something like I did for Ethereum. I felt like I was going to do that anyways. And so then I promised you that that was like one of the first things I said on the sCrypt video. I promised that, I'll do some tutorial videos. But then ever since I did that, I felt so much pressure to actually get it done. And it's been stressing me out so much. Okay.
Don't worry. You're thinking too much, man. Don't worry, man.
Okay. Yeah.
No
all right.
pressure.
Well, thank you.
If it's within 18 months, it's all good. Yes. Okay. We have a team just joined.
Hey, good afternoon, guys.
Hello. You want to?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
I can hear you, but I cannot see you.
Yeah, working on the video. Bear with me for a second here. I got to switch over.
Okay. Yeah, Tim is also working on a very, I think, an interesting BSV focused project. I will let him briefly introduce himself.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, Tim.
Hi.
Welcome to the
I kind of feel like I know some of you already because I've been watching a lot of the calls. So I'm glad I was able to catch up with you this today. I've been a developer for 30 years. Started out in the U.S. Air Force, as an assembler guy. That's what they taught us in,
Wow.
and then worked my way to COBOL. And throughout my career, I've transitioned myself into a full stack developer manager, and I've been an entrepreneur for just over 24 years so of my career.
Wow.
So
Awesome.
yeah, and right now we are just wrapping up development of a low code platform that we have been working on for the better part of 10 years now. And we were always kind of ahead of ourselves because that's just it's always worked out for us. The low code platform, the best way to explain kind of where we compete or where we sit is if you think about blockchain. We actually legitimately over the course of the last 11 years have been developing what I would say is probably a very similar, almost like a use case of a relational database model of the blockchain. We store a transaction history of everything from the very beginning, and pretty much from the structure, which is currently in SQL Server, all the way through the React Material UI front end, we can generate code in minutes. So when I was introduced to BSV kind of early last year through Brian Doherty, and I actually went to high school with him. I was actually a few years ahead of him in high school. Wow. And he started sharing a lot of stuff about BSV and about what was going on, and it was never on our radar until the low cost transactions. And then once BSV started to show their strength inside of the the power of the technology and what they were able to do, that's when we decided it was a nice fit for us to kind of transition and create a sort of hybrid solution, which I've been working with Yahweh, has been gracious enough to give me some of his time and help me through understanding and getting my feet wet in sCrypt and writing smart contracts on BSV. So that kind of brings me full wrap.
So the first thing that you said, I was just wondering, the first thing you said was low code. Low code. So just meaning that you don't have to like write a bunch of code. It's like a simple way of writing contracts.
Yeah. So the way we've kind of gone forward is we built on a distributed model so that we wanted to give ownership of the data to the individuals. One of our biggest things is social media and how we have no ownership of data. And obviously that's the strength of blockchain, is the ability to not only express ownership, but secure it and then transact it. So from our perspective, we've been building this platform all along, waiting for the right opportunity. BSV comes along, we can write transactions much lower cost. We can write more transactions that can handle the bigger blocks, that type of stuff. Now it's a nice relationship because we have an entire relational data model that does things like business development or culture process or planning and task management and stuff like that. We can turn a lot of those tasks or a lot of the culture process into actual transacted transactions on the blockchain.
I don't have the same vocabulary. I understand a little bit of what you said, but yeah, I just don't have the same vocabulary. I'm sure maybe other people did.
Listen, I'm trying to tell this story is like trying to explain to people what blockchain and why it's important. It's the same, it's the same thing. It's all terminology and what belongs where.
But I can try and say it back, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But like I remember, there's one of the Bitcoin class of Satoshi's where he's talking about how you can just take a normal database, like an Oracle database or whatever, SQL, whatever, and then just like make logs of each of the changes in the database on chain.
Yep.
And he said that's easy to do now. That was one of the things that Craig said now. That's easy to do now. And then you just have a record of all the changes. And you just use your normal database as if it's a normal database, but now you just have the added logs, I guess, of all the changes. So that's kind of maybe what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's one aspect of it. Yeah, we actually, in our system, all of the requests and changes, all of the versions of the data all the way through. Yeah, we've got a log of all that information. We can just start transacting all of that. And the thing with our system, it's going to be user preference. So user comes in and says, I want nothing on the chain, or I want everything on the chain, and I want the super encrypted, super secure, best thing you can give me possibility. We're dealing with whatever it may be. So we want to allow for that flexibility and for them to just kind of take and become these little individual distributed apps where they have control of their data, and then that data, they can also mediate the information between themselves and other participants of the platform.
Cool. That sort of makes sense, man. And you said that you worked at an airport or something?
Air Force.
Air Force. Yeah. Oh, cool.
So his background is similar to Craig somehow. Both in Air Force, write low-level code. Did you ever write Forth?
What's
Forth?
that?
Forth, the language.
No, never Force, but I've done stuff, everything from assembler all the way up to like Ada, COBOL, C.
Okay.
I mean, I learned C way back in '93.
Oh, okay. And you are also almost exclusively on Windows, right? So you are like very similar to Craig. Okay.
Yeah,
Did you create Bitcoin or?
Yeah, so we've been a Microsoft shop. Unfortunately, my career has kind of pigeonholed me into that area for a while, but I've done a lot of PHP and a lot of a lot of Angular and JavaScript. I've pretty much, language to me is a tool. The ability to put that language together in such a way that you're building the logic to bring together something that you're inventing, that's the exciting part of development to me, programming to me.
Nice. And go ahead.
Now, I was going to say, I can totally relate, Tim. I bought my first Borland C++ compiler in '93. So that's how I got my start with C++ as well. So,
Borland. Oh, yeah.
Good old days.
Borland. Back in the days when it was Borland and Watcom duking it out.
Yeah. Everybody was getting away from the great big machines and the great big block buildings. Now we carry them all around.
Precisely.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, what other questions you guys have? I mean, I'd be happy to answer questions, but I don't want to interject in your conversation because one of your topics is really, really intriguing to me. You were talking about wanting to do DeFi. You were going to be talking about DeFi, and Joey and I talked about it. I have a very, very particular interest in the currency aspect of it and trying to understand crypto economics and that type of thing. So this is good for us.
All right. So when you hear the word DeFi, what does that mean to you? Like, how would you define it?
Finance. To me, it's somewhat foreign because I'm not the stronger economics guy. My business partner actually had his Series 5. He's been in the banking industry, done corporate loans and stuff like that. So he understands the finance part of it a lot better than I do. But I also understand I need to understand it as good as him, so that when I'm writing these contracts, I'm making sure that I'm following, the guidelines and the structures that are going into place. Got it.
Yeah, because we were just having this debate in the MetaNet ICU is that DeFi is an oxymoron. Like and I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I'm just pointing out that the word itself is extremely misleading. And I'm not an expert in finance. My dad he was a portfolio manager, wealth advisor. So growing up, I always have been comfortable with the idea of understanding shares and ownership and investing and what securities are, et cetera, et cetera. So I know, and then I also did a little bit of computer science. So sometimes maybe I say stuff that people don't even understand, but just like you said, because your strength is in economics. But I was trying to point out that we should use a different word than DeFi because it's an oxymoron, okay? Because decentralized means, and there's a whole video you guys did on this, but you are issuing a standard, like a standard for wheat or the Bitcoin protocol or a standard for oil. And then as soon as you issue that standard, anybody, like with the miners in Bitcoin or any oil well, can meet that standard for you. And then you have a decentralized product where you can get it from anybody. It's like kind of like Microsoft's business model where they had the operating system and anybody could use it. See what I mean? There's like multiple, or that's maybe not the best example, but you issue a standard and then many different companies. Yeah, Yeah, and then it stays the same and it's fixed and it's literally the standard never changes, and that's when it's decentralized. And so that's why Craig always says for BSV to be a commodity, meaning it's decentralized, for it to be a commodity, the protocol cannot change. Okay. If the protocol can change willy-nilly, then you're trusting in somebody. And so then it is a security offering, because you have to then go through all the securities laws, which is making sure that these people that can change the protocol are trustworthy. So, okay, so that's what decentralized means. Finance, at least to me, I don't know if I have this perfect. I wish Craig could correct me or something, but I said this and he didn't correct me, so I assume that it might be on track. But with finance, you have an individual who is making decisions. He is an agent, right? He has agency. And so they're changing, like you run your card here, you run your card there, or a company has a CFO who is in charge of all the money flows, right? They are an agent of that money. They're managing the finance for that company. So to say decentralized, meaning it's a thing that,
that no one can change.
That no one can change, and then saying that finance, which is by definition something that somebody can change, it involves an agent who's doing things. It doesn't make any sense. And so that's why he said DeFi can never exist. And he said it like 20 times. And so anybody that says it is, he said, what was he said? He said they're either ignorant and incompetent, corrupt, or deceptive.
One of those
And
things is what was said. I looked up on
the word itself is an oxymoron. So that's but a lot of people don't understand finance and that kind of stuff, and so they just use the word. But then it became this catchphrase, and so people may recognize it for things like tokens and these kinds of things, which are definitely useful and they have utility, but it's all just this whole mishigash of like just whatever. And so I just want to clear it up with good vocabulary, and that's all that I was debating about with the terms there. Okay.
What would you call it then?
Okay, so look, you have peer-to-peer exchange. Okay,
Not
as an
necessarily
individual.
peer-to-peer, right? But sometimes they have exchanges or like an intermediary, like a marketplace, right? That's not
and if
peer-to-peer.
there's an intermediary, then it's not decentralized, is it?
Okay, well, look, have you ever sold a car and you can either do it on like with somebody and you take the ownership slip and you give it directly to them?
Yeah,
or
Craigslist, right?
So yeah. And that is when you're doing it, what I mean when I say the word peer-to-peer. It's a direct exchange, okay? A direct exchange between two individuals. When you go through CarMax, then you have this organization, this, what's the word in the white paper? Trusted intermediary. So when you're doing it through them, then that's going to be a group of people that are delivering something. That's not a direct exchange anymore. That's not so DeFi, which is the worst word in the world. What it should be is like direct exchange or peer-to-peer exchange. It's just between two individuals that are trying to do small little things.
But as I just mentioned, there's many times this so-called DeFi, they have intermediary. What do you call them then?
Well, then they're not DeFi.
Okay, well then
they're just
it's not decentralized anymore. It requires security law, and so then it's a security, and it's.
How do you call this whole group of things? Right? Sometimes peer-to-peer, sometimes you have to trust third party. What do you call this thing? Conglomerate.
If it's pure, I think if it's peer-to-peer, then it would be just direct exchanges. And if it's called DeFi, but it uses a centralized and trusted third party that should probably be registered as a security, but it's not, then I would call that like scam or lying or something like that. But
in that case, it's just
there's two
normal
cases.
finance thing, but you're logging all of this stuff on chain. Just like kind of, I think maybe what we were talking about, the database thing. It's like you just have record keeping.
All of the unregistered securities get logged on chain.
Can I maybe try to steel man the argument from the point of view of the EVM proponents, or the folks who would normally be working with an EVM, an ethereal virtual machine style computational model, who would say that it's decentralized because Ethereum's computational model on the blockchain is decentralized. It's essentially a decentralized network, and that
but it's not
financial
though, because it's not though.
He's saying that
Ethereum can
the
change
other,
it.
That's our perspective, right? But he's saying he's trying to play the devil's advocate. Is it right?
Well,
right?
I know,
You're
but
saying
what
they think, right?
Well, no, this is why it's fraud. It's because they're saying it's decentralized. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, let's for.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Go.
So because first of all, it's a decentralized network, and we're running it on a decentralized network, and also the code is written to the immutable, the smart contract, which encapsulates the rules that govern this exchange that's going to happen between the parties. Yes, it's an intermediary that we're introducing, but it's immutable and it's unchanging. And once it's written onto the ledger, it's decentralized by virtue of the fact that it's running on a decentralized network autonomously, essentially, right? So you essentially have an autonomous agent running on a decentralized network, which facilitates interactions between peers, and that would make it both decentralized and peer-to-peer.
Okay, so this is what I was going to say. Their network isn't decentralized because they keep on doing all these hard forks and soft forks. They keep on changing the protocol. And so you're operating on a network that can change. It's not a commodity, it's a security. So then you're saying that it's on a decentralized network. It's on a distributed network, I think might be the right term. There's a lot of nodes running it, but you still have these people that can control the changes. Once the code is fixed and it doesn't change, then it's a decentralized system.
But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing about the language. Language is a social construct, right? But what you mean, what we wanted to mean is two different things, right? For example, right, the number one word I really want to change is smart contract, right? It's neither smart, no, it's always contract, right? Many times it's not smart, and many times it's not contract. But here's the thing, right? It's a social contract. It doesn't matter what I think the good word about it, like a programming money, whatnot, right? But if all other people are calling it smart contract, when I communicate with them, I don't. The word. Yeah, but the words is defined by the social construct. You may say it's not precise. You may say, oh, it's wrong. But here's the thing, right? It doesn't matter because you are using this word with DeFi or smart contract to communicate with other people. If they think all the other people think this is the meaning, you have to conform it. Unless you are Snoop Dogg, right? You can invent your own words, but we are not. Well, that's the whole point. I call it the DeFi because otherwise I have to explain how do I communicate with the general blockchain community. How do I? Let's say Tim, right? He heard about this word. So I mean, he may not have precise definition, but it's a social contract. I don't have to reinvent my own word. Like let's say I call it a peer-to-peer, let's say finance, right, or direct exchange. Then this is our terminology. I have to explain to him, Tim, right? What is this? And then eventually, oh, is this what other people call DeFi? Why don't you just use DeFi in the first place? I mean, okay, here's the thing. Technically, it may not be the best words to describe. It's like smart contracts, right? But here's the thing, as I said, it's a social construct. That's why I want to put a quotation around DeFi. Yeah. And also, if you read my article, I say it claims to be better than legacy.
I know.
So, but I have to.
To add something here, the problem that we run into is there is the peer-to-peer transaction, which would be me to Jiawei directly. The only way for that to truly happen is to have a client app that's transacting back and forth. But if you have all the data that you need that's behind it, that's supporting information, now what you need to do is you need to transact in a way that you're opening up security. The security then becomes, it doesn't necessarily have to be a monetary transaction that's going on. It could be just a data or a security type transaction. And I think where a lot of the problem runs into is DeFi to me is more of a way to sell, hey, use our protocol. And that's all that seems like to me. And so that's why I wanted to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, token swaps, all these stuff, tokens, NFTs, those are all like, okay, but just the catchphrase DeFi, it's just an oxymoron. It doesn't make sense. So, and I wanted to say language is not, there's this Jordan Peterson thing that got me to realize that there's a body of law. It's like a very philosophical thing, but you have canonical texts, right? So the evolution of language, the way it works is you have a canonical text where like everybody references it. So everybody knows that definition. Like the Black's legal definitions, Black's law or the Bible would be a canonical text, or and hopefully I'm saying all this right. I've never tried to express this to somebody. So maybe somebody who's very precise with their words will get mad at me, but you have these like super hubs where everybody has seen that video or everybody has seen that, read that book. And so it's like Star Wars, it becomes, or the Matrix, it becomes part of the default language, like red pill or blue pill or whatever, right? So these are canonical texts, and it is a massive influence into the language. But the way that you get a canonical text is by being extremely precise and articulate, and you know what I mean? So DeFi just attracts a bunch of people. If somebody uses the word DeFi, it means that they just, I don't know, it's just like they're in this place where they're being influenced by people that don't understand the technology, like Ethereum and that kind of stuff. And there's all these like weird paradoxical, it just is a signal that it's like somebody who's in this, industry where there's all these weird frauds, and you know what I mean? I don't know. I just want to create our own new canonical text with the right vocabulary.
What do you call it? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What's the alternative, right?
Well, that's
what do you call it?
That's why we're having this debate. That's
that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying.
What would you call it? Right. So you are saying we should not use this term. What?
Well, Craig said it should be direct exchange.
But again, right? We just talk some examples. Some of them is direct, right? But sometimes you go through some like platform or third party, right? That's not direct. I think it's a subset.
Right. If it's not direct,
it doesn't.
Then there could be another term that is specific to that which is not direct, such as indirect exchange.
Well, don't the cream of the crop kind of rise to the top at that point? Because once people start to, it's like the MySpaces of the world. They'll just kind of die off and become, some weird thing that goes on that nobody talks about anymore.
Exactly, yeah. And so, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's what it's going to be. It's going to be like this thing that dies off because it's like in computer science. It's not a hard reference in memory. It's a weak reference. You know what I mean? Where like hard reference, you know what I mean? I don't know if you guys are familiar. Back when in Objective-C, I had to do these things. You could have, pointer, it could be weak, or And so if it's canonical, it stays. It's part of the tree. If it's not, then it's like a leaf that falls off. And so DeFi as a term makes no sense. It's not going to be supported by, eventually, like you said, it's just going to die off. It's going to be like this appendage that just falls off the tree. It's a weak memory. It just goes away. So, I'm just saying that and I understand that you do it, and it worked to get me because I was lost in this whole smart contract thing. And you said smart contracts on Bitcoin, and then boom, I saw it. I'm like, oh, I should watch this. So I get your strategy, which is to use these words, but it should be. But it's like, It
It's
just
about-
drives me
Here's
nuts.
the thing, man.
Yeah,
If I change the title to direct payments or exchange,
nobody
or
would click
Bitcoin,
on it. Yeah,
that's
I
a
know.
fact,
So
man.
I,
we
I
have to
have a
be-
question.
We have to follow the
Correct.
idea that we need to participate in the existing model in order to get rid of it. Meaning we have to be clickbaity in order to get rid of clickbait or something like that.
Mhm.
At least that's the theory.
I
that if we're taking it to its logical
that's
conclusion.
not okay.
It's almost
and,
like a
Stefan
Trojan
wanted
horse.
to talk,
You
but
see what I mean?
that's well, yeah, but no, I see. This is where I was getting so upset, is because I have a philosophical difference with that. My difference is that I never do clickbait. I always try and describe it as accurately as possible, and I grow way slower, but I don't have this karma that comes back to me later that I deceived somebody. Right?
I don't think that we're being
people.
deceptive.
Well, no, it's deceptive. People click on it. Like, how annoying is it when you're on YouTube and you click on something that has some title, and then it's the opposite of what you clicked on, and then you get more negative reviews. So I've always noticed that if I did clickbait, I would get more negative reviews, and I always optimized for customer satisfaction, and so I always was sensitive to it. But again, it's not a big deal. Like, I'm not saying that it's life or death here. I'm just saying that it's my philosophical distinction. I just don't do clickbait ever. I always try and be as accurate with my labeling as possible. And if people are bored by that, then so be it. I don't care about market size. I just care about quality.
The problem is we have too much of that going on right now. Then we're getting fed all this information, which is kind of really starting to mold people in a way that may not necessarily be the way that they were on a path. So the way that they're using marketing stuff, that one of the big reasons why we started on the journey we did is for that exact reason. I should be able to, if somebody wants to use my information, I may choose, yes, I want to allow them to use my information, but I want them to pay me. I'm not just going to give that information away. And too many times my information is being sold over and over and over again, which is why email stinks as it does today.
All right,
Email,
guys,
sorry.
Coming back to the
Okay.
idea of nomenclature, I kind of feel like the medium has something to do with it. The medium of exchange has something to do with it. Meaning that, I should probably not say medium of exchange. That's sort of a loaded term. When two people or two parties attempt to conduct a financial transaction, right? They can either conduct a transaction through a trusted intermediary, or they can exchange cash, or some other way they can do a direct interchange with
direct
each other.
exchange.
Barter.
And I used the term peer-to-peer, and that was the
Right.
first time. But then everybody had this idea of peer-to-peer network, and like it just got messed. So,
Right.
but I understand there's these two things:
But
through intermediary or
Go ahead.
direct exchange. Or go ahead.
So I want to tease that out a little bit, right? Because the direct exchange can happen between the two of us directly, or it could also, when we talk, so we can talk about financial transactions, right? Or I can shout over the medium of air some information to you, which you will hear, and here the medium that conducts the interchange or that facilitates the interchange is the air between us. And I want to now here leap to say that we can write this in a data stream between our computers with a direct connection. In the old days, you could make a direct serial to serial cable connection between computers. PC link, if anybody remembers.
Tim?
Look at Tim
He's
laughing.
nodding.
He remembers the pain. so it's still peer-to-peer, right? You have two computers directly connected to each other. It's still peer-to-peer. If I now replace that wire with Bitcoin, right? With the Bitcoin network, which is essentially a way for me to write data into the blockchain that is only accessible by the party with whom I'm trying to interact with, right? The proposition that I have is that is still a peer-to-peer exchange. That it is still between me and one other person. We are conducting our transaction peer-to-peer. It's just in a store and forward mechanism. It's still private. It's still between the two of us, and only the two of us are involved in this exchange. And although, even though it's happening through this weird network that is operated by third parties, that is facilitated by third parties, but that the exchange in this edge case is still peer-to-peer. That's kind of where I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. I see what you mean. But you're going to do that. You remember we were talking about payment channels, and the payment channel all happens between us, and then we register it to the blockchain, basically. So when you broadcast so it's exactly like the car thing. When I sell a car, I give you the pink slip, and then you have to write on the back of it and mail it into the DMV. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that happen before.
Yeah. So I think that these are two different modes of peer-to-peer exchange. There is the direct exchange, which we can have, but there is also the intermediated or the mediated exchange, which can also be peer-to-peer. There are mediated exchanges which are not peer-to-peer. So for me, the blockchain, or rather Bitcoin's innovation, was that it could act as a non-trusted intermediary to facilitate peer-to-peer exchanges, meaning that it didn't used to be possible. Traditionally, when you say, the moment you introduced before Bitcoin an intermediary in the exchange, then it can't be peer-to-peer. So yes, I agree. This SPV style interaction that you're referring to, exchanging the pink slips and then mailing the new registration to the DMV, that would be the same as a BIP 270 transaction, where you pass me the transaction directly, and I send it on to, I validate it and send it on to the miner, right? So these two things for me are equivalent. So yes, that is peer-to-peer, but I'm basically proposing that communicating with each other through the blockchain, where it's only the two parties on the ends of that UTXO, or at opposite ends of the inputs and outputs of the transaction, that this is also a peer-to-peer exchange.
I want to add something to that too. I think that, like you said, the only true way is to remove any error between us to do a peer-to-peer transaction. That's the only way we can do it. So what we're utilizing blockchain for in this particular case with BSB is for the enforcement of the peer-to-peer. So I just got done watching the Super NFT, the Super Asset NFT. And in a lot of ways, when you're just transferring that ownership forward with a single transaction inside of that, and you're following the path, and how he talked about going kind of off and adding in some additional functionality with going to an auction and then bringing the NFT back into its own normal mode of carrying forward. I think a lot of that's enforcing the peer-to-peer through the Merkle route. I mean, you're able to track all of that. So from a peer-to-peer standpoint, I understand what you're saying, Kevin. I really do. I appreciate that very, very much, because I should be able to go up and bump phones with you and change money. That, that should be something that I should just, get my fingerprint, whatever, and do that. But in the same vein, when I'm trying to deal with any one of you guys, I'm in New York. I know Jawa is in California, I think, and so there's no way for us to do a true peer-to-peer transaction in that case.
Look, we could. Remember the payment channel thing, like we were talking about, you could do it through anything. It could be through pigeons. It could be just on a piece of paper. Like, you're doing all this stuff offline, but then you're doing the exchange off chain. Yeah. Off chain. Thank you for that correction. And then you're registering it to the blockchain, and whoever sends it into the network does that. So in the past, like right now, when he says cash is dying, it's like you can't do peer-to-peer. Is that a safe word to use? Yeah, you can't do direct exchange with people anymore. You have to go through your credit card company or a debt-based system where they track everything. And so they own you. They know where you are. They know what you're doing. They know how to manipulate you with your next purchase, et cetera, et cetera. But, okay, and then this is what I was trying to say here. This presentation, he says, this is London 2020, okay? He says anything about, he talks about how securities laws applies. and this is a really big breakthrough moment for me. He says, anything above whatever the law is in your country, you know, when you're on an airplane and you go through customs and it's like $10,000 or whatever, you have to declare it if you have more than $10,000. And so what he says in this presentation is that if you don't think governments have the authority to block your transactions, you are daft, right? Or is something that he said, like, you have not lived. Like, governments have this authority. It's part of their law, is that they can do stuff. But below $10,000, you're free to just use cash and not do KYC and reporting and all this stuff. Because, you know, the government needs to be able to protect itself. It's like if you watch James Bond movies, like Casino Royale, right? There's all this financial fraud, and the government was trying to protect itself from criminal activity. You know what I mean? It's so they give you flexibility under $10,000 where you can have freedom and do whatever you want. But above $10,000, like, and he talks about this in many of the examples, like eating at a restaurant, if you spend more than whatever on the bill, you have to show identity and it has to be reported. So anyways, what Bitcoin makes possible is that we can do these little smart contracts and stuff for things below $10,000. And you could do these low code whatevers or fun things and microtransactions. But if you are above $10,000, then all these other laws are in effect. And if you don't follow the laws, they'll shut down the network. So, because it destabilizes the country. And we don't want that. That's why he keeps on talking about Jack and anarchy and all these idiots that don't understand why we need government. So I hope that makes sense.
Before we get to, sorry, I might be a little bit all over the place here, but I do have a question for Tim about the low code platform. The thing that I am missing at the moment, right, and that I've actually had several people ask me about, is that in enterprise software development, typically we work with intermediary layers between ourselves and our persistence layer, right? So the database or the storage layer, there's normally an intermediary library called a relational, an object, either a functional relational model or an object relational model, which is sort of a library of functions. I think if you guys are using something like Rails, then it would be active record, would be the object relational model, because Rails is object relational. And if it's something like Scala, then it would be Slick, which is a functional relational model. But it's this idea of having a layer of abstraction between the semantics of the developer, what the developer uses, so the developer can speak in, can express what they want to do in code, and then it's translated into the abstractions that are used. It's translated into SQL queries and SQL primitives in the background, or whatever the primitive is, if it's a NoSQL database or whatever, right? It's translated into the primitives of the underlying storage mechanism. The question that I have, right, and this is something that I think is sorely needed for us to move forward, is if you guys have something like that as part of your offering, which is essentially a way of disintermediating the data writing to the blockchain.
So yes, the architecture. I come from, I actually have been trained in Oracle, SQL Server. Was at one point in my career considering going to be a DBA. So I'm an architectural engineer. I'm kind of like the jack of all trades and master of very little. So from that perspective, but when it comes from the client, we have an API written in C#, bearer token authenticated. And inside of that API, there's some code that kind of generates some of the dynamic SQL that's required for the filtering and the querying and the relations and all that type of stuff. So we have that C# going there. in one of the ways that I architected it is in such a way that the database layer is replaceable. So I can go to a CouchDB or a NoSQL DB. I can go to blockchain. So at that layer, like at the very lowest layer, and even better yet, coming from the background I do have some expertise in writing stored procedures and some C# code that is integrated with SQL. So we can actually do the transaction layer right at the database, where it's the database that, as it's querying the data, is actually confirming the security or the access from during the query, not at the C# code. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Okay.
Sorry, one last question about the product, because I'm a little bit fanatical about what today they're called low-code environments. Back in the day, we used to call them rapid application development environments. Things like Visual Basic, Delphi, Borland C++ Builder, Power Builder, Visual COBOL. These were all tools from the 90s, right? That this is essentially exactly what people are inventing now and calling low code. As far as at least that's my feeling about it.
No, so the way, so just to kind of give a little bit more of my background, I've been through just about everything from telecommunications to IoT to, I've worked in a lot of different areas, but my last business, we actually developed a content management system that we hosted everything from small business up to congressional websites. So from that, I have a content management background with a dynamic mind that just cannot just wrap something in a constant and leave it be, because I have to play with it. And so from that perspective, if you think of our data model kind of like a black box, once you plug in the data model through the platform, you can then relate any record in that data structure to anything else in the database, including relationship. So it starts to go into more like a GraphQL type of approach, but from a relational standpoint. So when you get into the cube type data models and stuff like that, that's where I'm kind of feeding from when it comes to that. So
yeah. So just to maybe quickly finish up my thought. So thinking in terms of the way in which those tools work, right, and trying to use those tools as sort of a reference for the way in which I have observed most low-code development environments these days to work, which is that they have lots of layers of abstraction, and then there is something very specific which they do, which is a ability to perform visual data binding to user interface controls. So when you're doing form building, when you're laying out forms, whether it's in a native form builder or in a JavaScript form builder, you can bind the underlying data that populates the form. You can get a two-way binding directly all the way into the database in the back. And then you can layer workflows over that. Is that pretty much what you guys are working with?
Yep. Yeah, it's Visual Studio Code on steroids, or a content management system on steroids. If you think about content management systems and website design, everything that we're doing right now has to be accessible through either a client app or a portal. So everything that we've developed, written using React Material UI, so that way we can be responsive. We don't necessarily have native apps right at this moment, but our API supports them. And a lot of the code that I'm writing is in TypeScript using Visual Studio Code. So that way I can plug it into libraries and people can just include our libraries and start building their own.
Okay, yeah, that's clear. Sorry,
by the way, I think Tim hasn't mentioned, but the name is Udici, right? You can post the link in the Slack channel later. Now, if you want.
There you go. Yeah. Engage with me at udici.me/Tim, and we'll get you. I'll get you in, and if you guys engage with me, we can schedule a time. And right now we're piecemealing people in. We are in alpha state right now, and getting ready to kind of go to a full production release this year.
Nice.
And for people who have not heard about Udici, how would you describe it to just somebody totally new?
We are working on our current profile right now as far as our elevator pitch, but the elevator pitch for this point, we are a marketing and technology company that's been focused on community development, small business. And what our heart and our desire has always been to help small businesses to find the technology solutions that they need. And it's such an underserved market right now, and especially with the transition to the new, like crypto and stuff like that, there's really not a lot of people supporting that endeavor yet. So, our heart and our hearts are really truly in community development and really kind of helping small businesses. So to be able to bring a platform like this to market is really a lot of fun, and it's really exciting to be able to do. So, and we also do our own live streaming. Where we're trying, and if anybody wants to join us on Thursday nights, man, we want more people to kind of come out, start sharing their knowledge, because the more channels we have sharing this information, the better off we're going to be. The more people that can share the different perspectives of what we don't understand. Like I said, I'm a jack of all trades, and I'm a master of very little. You guys bring knowledges and perspectives that I can't necessarily express. And that is what we need to be sharing more of. And we have kind of a built-in audience. We started live streaming back in 2013 in a studio and in the bottom of a basement of a bar. So
cool.
But Udicci,
Awesome.
Udicci is the name. It's udicci.com. .me. We're there. We're everywhere.
Okay.
And you are still working for the Air Force, is that what you said? But
No. I'm actually I do a gig with a hospital now. And so
cool.
I'm doing Workday administration, and I've been able to learn. They're also a low-code platform, but mainly towards HR and ERP. And it's been kind of an interesting experience, because I've been able to learn a lot about how they're pulling together processes and data models and what they're delivering. So we've been able to take a lot of what we learned from them and actually apply it to our solution. So it's been good.
cool. Yeah. So you're working on that, and then what region are you in? Approximately. You don't have to say where you are. But...
No, I'm in New York.
Oh, New York. Okay, that's what Chawei said. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm
Cool.
actually in Rochester, New York, and the home of Kodak, Xerox, all the fun ones that are up here. Kind of, we're waiting for the revival of Rochester right at the moment. So
make Rochester great again.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, Xerox started
down
there?
here in San Diego.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Xerox is up here, and Kodak. It's
Kodak.
Kind of the big employers. Johnson and Johnson's up here.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah, I'm down in San Diego, and we have Qualcomm, which stands for Quality Communications.
Yeah.
That was and so that's the big industry. And so Chawei was visiting, and I was trying to show, like, look, there's like this infrastructure for all this stuff. It's very developed. And
it's a lot of biomedical
and we
stuff.
have
Salk
there's a lot of medical stuff, but we also
UCSD.
have the Navy, and so it has a more kind of conservative and practical, like, kind of feel, but it's still California, whereas up in the Bay Area it's like very, 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 very liberal, and it's kind of like I'm not against it, but it's just not for me. So I don't want to really live up there.
We actually have a fun story. We actually were invited by the Navy Postgraduate School out to the thing that they hold at Camp Roberts, just north of San Diego, I think it is. And so we had to come out, and it's kind of like a business show for the military, because you're in government agencies where, because you're not allowed to physically go out and solicit, but they'll bring you in and have you show what you got so they can figure out what they want from you. And so we went out there, and we were one of 55 companies showing our technology. And it was really kind of interesting, because there was only one other company doing what we were doing. But the other technologies, I mean, they had some unmanned drones out there. That was kind of the early days of that. And then they had the flex screen technology. And so we were able to see how they were using it for the military purposes and stuff. And so I've been out to San Diego. I think that was in 2016. We went out there for that by the Navy Postgraduate School. So
cool. And also you're talking about Xerox. I think that I forget it exactly, but Steve Jobs, before he invented the Mac or something, but he went to Xerox PARC and they had invented all this infrastructure. And I wonder if that was in New York where you're talking about.
Oh, that's
Maybe
Palo Alto.
Oh, okay.
Xerox,
Different
Palo Alto.
Xerox.
Yeah, it's a
So
research
Xerox
arm.
PARC is.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
in Palo Alto.
Got it.
Yes.
You know,
Got it.
so yeah, so that, I mean, it's really interesting to see the technologies and where they, you know, how fast they're evolving. And you were talking about, you know, being able to go peer to peer. And one other thought I had that I thought I'd share here is that I really believe we're going to get to that point where it's going to be a more solid direction, like direct connection with people, because we're going to have to know that we can trust, and there's going to have to be some sort of way to trust as we continue to go forward, especially if our economies start to collapse. And you know, who do you trust? How can you trust them? How can you know that you're going to be able to exchange with them and get the value back that you're looking for? And I think we're going to see more of a need to be able to do some of that direct transaction stuff. So I see us evolving that way. But I think we have to kind of start with the hybrid approach, because everybody wants to get their toes wet. Nobody wants to jump in full force yet.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
why, yeah, even whatever you call it, a direct payment exchange or DeFi, yeah, I think maybe the peer-to-peer side of things, they can, at least to me, is very interesting. For example, the example is post, right? I think I prefer to call it, again, we are coming back to terminology, called direct exchange. That's exactly what happened there. So you don't have to rely on, there's no third party there.
Right.
And it's kind of trustless, I call it, because you don't have to rely on first on a third party, but also you don't have to trust your counterparty as risk. For example, you and me, as a team, and me, we are exchanging, let's say. So if you have a problem you want me to solve, and then if I solve correctly, you pay me, right? So, but then you always have the counterparty risk, because if you pay me first, I may not give you the answer. But if I give you the answer first, you may not pay me, right? So that's the part where I see. That's again another term, right? Smart contracts coming into play, and it's similarly in this so-called DeFi, because the only reason I'm going to do it, because that's just a fact, right? Today, if you look at the whole blockchain space, right, I think a team is maybe a little bit late to the whole blockchain, but when like regular folks, when they hear about the blockchain technology today, they always think about, oh, they were asked, oh, can you do DeFi on Bitcoin SV? Because actually that's what actually happened like a few days ago. I had the pleasure to talk with IBM through Bitcoin Association. They just, when I say, oh, I do a smart contract on BSV, the first question they ask is, hey, can you do DeFi? So that's why I actually prompted me to write the articles in the first place, because for the average folks, it's just you can say the bad word. It's like NFT, right? Because at the beginning, I kind of remember we're like, no, we are not, bring all these tokens and stuff onto BSV, because, somehow we think it's kind of not very legit. But then later on, you see today, right? A lot of transactions are coming from NFT. My philosophy, if really people want to do it, either is DeFi or NFT. They have choice, right? They can do it on other chains or do it on BSV. I would rather them, if they're going to do it anyway, right? Why not just do it on BSV? I'm not saying any judgment call for whether they should do it or that, right? But it's like gambling, right? Or a lot of other things. You may say it's not good or bad, but just people do it. That's just the fact. But where would you them to do it, right?
I understand your strategy, but I'm just saying, if somebody uses the word DeFi or private blockchain, it immediately signals that they have no idea what they're talking about, or they're deceptively fraud. And so then you can use that to get them and their attention, but then you actually have to explain how this actually works. You know what I mean? So the guy at IBM who says we have a private blockchain and we're doing DeFi, it just shows to me that they have a complete misunderstanding of what the whole purpose of Bitcoin was to begin with. Because a private blockchain the whole point is that you're broadcasting all this stuff publicly. So why would you have a private blockchain?
No. They are reaching out to us to see if they can use the public blockchain for their purpose.
No, and they can, and it's awesome and everything. But I'm just saying that the terminology. I totally understand what you're saying, and there is use, and I get it. But I'm just saying that there needs to be this like undoing of this. There has to be like, what's the right word? I don't know.
Re-education.
There just has to be a re-education. Yeah, that's the right word. Sorry, guys. I've like only slept a couple hours for the past nights, and I'm like so tired. So I'm like my health is starting to suffer. But I'm getting more comfortable. I have this thing on a tripod, so I can like, relax a little bit. But I'm
We'll
listening.
make it short. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So what do you think, Tim and Stefan? Because I know this is a controversial topic in the BSV. I think it's not controversial in other blockchains, right?
I feel about it the way that I feel about the word hacker. I fight. There are battles worth fighting, and there are battles not worth fighting, and trying to swim against the tide on this one is just not worth it for me. I'm perfectly happy to just say DeFi and then use the word.
I think though, I think I would. Okay, so this is the thoughts that I'm having, is that like words are a way of kind of like signaling to other people and forming groups of people that have the same values. And so the problem with using those words is that you're signaling, I don't know, I'm not like, you can do the words, but I was just frustrated trying to explain all this and what I need to do is we need to invent a new vocabulary. And I think we're making some headway with that. With Craig right there, we were talking about it. We need to flesh this out a little bit better. Like we just need to have better debate and communication, so that then we can establish something where it actually makes sense and it's logically valid. It's like, this is actually the correct term and it's catchy or whatever. And then you can say something like better than DeFi. Look how you can do token swaps, whatever, on BSV and direct exchange or permanent record
I
log,
like that phrase,
whatever.
better than DeFi. It's short and punchy. Better than DeFi.
Okay, yeah, there you go. But that would be like something good, because right now if we're saying do DeFi on Bitcoin, then it's propagating it's like reinforcing the misunderstanding that DeFi is actually a thing. DeFi is a oxymoron. It can never exist. But I understand your strategy, so I'm not criticizing you.
Here's the thing. What's your proposal, right? Because it's always you can say something is not good, but how do you do better? It's like people criticizing capitalism, right? Okay, of course it's not perfect, right? It's nothing. It's not. But what's your proposal, right? But that's always my question.
No, and that's I just wanted to use I just wanted to understand Craig's perspective more, so that we can actually get a logically valid. And we've been doing this, and so it's good. I just want to start the conversation. I'm just saying that DeFi is an unacceptable word, and because it's stressing
what's
me
the
out.
alternative?
We just need to find the alternative.
Maybe you're thinking too much. Anyway.
No, I don't think so.
I have a question. I have a question about the intent. So I've actually not read the article that you wrote on Medium about the DeFi with BSV yet. So I have a question about that, right? Because right now I have an assumption in my mind, and maybe it's correct or maybe it's not, which is that in the way that I think about what DeFi means to the group of people who are practicing it on or using the word to mean very specific things, with Ethereum and Binance Chain and all of the EVM-based blockchains, right? The DeFi means a very specific thing to a group of people. The implementation that you're proposing, are you essentially transcribing, or rather translating, the outcome that they hope to achieve with what they're doing there, translating it into Bitcoin script and saying, I'm doing the same thing you're doing, but I'm doing it with Bitcoin, which you said couldn't be done. Is that sort of the approach you're taking?
Yes, and does it better, cheaper, more secure. Because we always say, right, you don't need other blockchains, but how do you do it? You can always say it, but people don't believe it, right? It's like Turing complete. When you say, oh, it's Turing complete, people don't take it seriously. But if you put the real transaction on the mainnet, it's like you prove the Earth is, it's not flat, right?
Yeah.
You can show the pictures, you can send the satellite taking pictures. That's much better than just say, oh, it's not flat, it's not flat. Same thing for here, right? Because we're always claiming, oh, you can do everything other blockchain can do. But where is it, right? So here, for me, I always take the experimental approach. I show by doing, right? So you say, oh, you can do all these tokens, fungible, not fungible, swap, where is it? Because I don't see the transaction, right? Because then I'm just showing them you can do it. If you really want to do it, you can actually do it better on Bitcoin. That proves, right? It's like a same big approach, right? You probably actually don't need other blockchains because you can do everything on Bitcoin. It's 1,000 times cheaper, more secure. Why bother? I mean, I'm not saying anything about whether you should do it or not, because that's like a subjective judgment call, right? And we are claiming to be permissionless, right? So it's not my call. I don't have to go to Kevin or Craig. Hey, can I do this? That's not. You want to have the kind of grassroots. Like you just offer the tools and people tinker with it. Some may be not bad, some may be bad. It's like the internet or any other big technology. You don't know what will come up with. What we can offer is to offer as much infrastructure, the tools, so people can innovate on top of it. I think they can probably come out with something which we later find out to be not that good, right? But that's just part of the trip, because nobody can. It's not like Craig has this magic bullet. Hey, we have this killer app. Everybody go build that, right? I wish that was true, but then that's centralized, right? So if we can bring that back over.
I think some of this too, it comes into the co-opetition that I keep hearing thrown around. There's cooperation and then there's competition. But then the more we can find ways to cooperate and in competition, the better off we're going to be. Because part of the distribution of wealth, any one thing that controls any single thing, now you're a god. Okay, no, you're not. So let's go to technology and let's realize that we are better off with distribution. We are better off where there's a general API that people can communicate with, and the trusted APIs become more notable and more utilized than the other one. So if somebody wants to manage their stories, they go to this platform. If somebody wants to manage their NFTs, they go to this platform. But it's all managed through one type of generic interface that they can just start pulling things in from every which way, and it doesn't matter where it is because blockchain is everywhere.
That's another word, right? So this word is probably a little bit more contentious than DeFi, simply because it actually has a proper meaning that is being bastardized in the same way that the word hacker got bastardized, right? Which is NFT. Non-fungible token actually is a class of thing that has become to mean a very specific thing, right? So it's a collective noun that is now being used as a proper noun, which it's a bit annoying.
Yeah,
it's
it
annoying.
all goes down to the utility of the transaction that you're writing. And NFT is just another type of utility of a transaction you can write. So you can write you can write different transactions for different purposes. The utility that's behind it is where the value is truly going to come in on top of the value of the data. I mean, at least that would be my my perspective when you start to consider the distributed model, and then being able to provide value and security, and only being able to open it for certain reasons, or unlocking. There's so many different thought processes, not only from just a transaction where we're sharing information or sharing a monetary whatever that non-fiat crypto is, you're exchanging the value in a way that is much different than what we're thinking, what we've ever been taught in the past. So it's like putting a little smart chip on the dollar bill and saying you can only spend this if it's, if you're in this store.
Isn't it
Yeah,
already
that's
the
the
case?
idea of programmable money. That's what I was trying to redefine it as. But you're doing programmable things or you're doing programmable direct exchange, which is another interesting idea. You're doing like I can write look, because a lot of the whole, if you want to get into that whole conspiracy thing is about the central bank, they're going to have programmable money and they can enslave you. And people use that term, programmable money. I'm like, oh shit, like now my term is ruined. But you can either have a central bank or somebody that's a loan officer, or not a loan officer, but somebody who's like entrapped you in this loan that you don't want, and you're a debt slave. Or you could do programmable money like common law, like it's like a sorry, I'm so tired, but
Okay.
just because it's programmable money doesn't mean it's evil, is what I'm trying to say. Because I was watching this, it was the RFK Jr. Thing, and he was talking about the future. We're going to have programmable money, and they're going to be able to control you, that you can't leave this area, and they're going to turn off your keys. But that's not how it works. If you have below $10,000, you can program things. So we can make an agreement with one another. Like, let's say I want to give to a homeless man, and I say, like in the past, it used to be like, I would ask, well, what are you going to use it for? And he's like, I'm going to go get some food. And then I remember I was younger and I watched it and I gave it to him. And then I like watched him, my friends and I watched him, and he went and bought alcohol. And so I was like, oh shit. Yeah. And so, but if I gave him a gift, and so then I'd give him a gift card. What I always do now is I literally carry like food in my car, and I'll offer them the food, and they almost always turn it down. And so they're not starving to death, but they just want money for something. And so, but imagine if I wanted to give to somebody, then I would say, program it on my low codes, just, they could only spend this money at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's in this proximity in the next 5 hours. If they don't spend it, it's invalid, right? So that's not a form. I mean, it's kind of a form of enslavement, but it's just that we're making an agreement between each other. It's like a contract between us two. Yeah. And so I'm programming the money to be that way. You could call it smart contract. Don't use that word. I hate it, but it's a automated money, or it's a contract in the automated contract.
Well, so way back when we first created our platform, we actually created the structures. We call them mediators, ironically. So the mediators can then, you can have transformations into the mediators, and in order to get access to the information inside of mediators, you actually have to have what's called a mediation agreement. The mediation agreement starts to be that individual to a portal, or to another individual, or to a business or whatever, pardon me, that allows you to kind of set the parameters of what can and can't transpire between you and that other party, and what information they have access to, what they can do with you, all the way down to, role-based to permission-based stuff. So from that, so to get to the closer to the individual, if we're giving the individual more of that control of who has access, what type of access, and they're in control of it at that point, I think that there's some significant value in securing those types of transactions on chain between those two parties. So to kind of address what you were talking about there, Kevin, I think that kind of gets closer to what you're talking about.
Sure. Yeah. It's just programmable money. You don't have to, look, we've always had programmable money. You can set up a trust and or a will. I think that was the what to do with the money when I die. Like, that's a contract. You can think of it as a program, but you had to rely on a person to execute it. But now we can start automating some of this stuff where the computer can do it. So an automated contract, an automated will, and programmable money. That's kind of how I think about it. But just like with all contracts, it can be set up in such a way where it could like create slavery, and that was the warning. And so people, just know that there's a whole group of people now that the word programmable money is tainted. They're going to hear that and they're going to think, oh, you're one of those guys. It's like, oh shit. So that's why I was trying to deny. That's why I stressed, because now I have to move away from using the word programmable money too. But what I'm trying to explain is that it's just contracts. You know what I mean? Like there's good contracts, there's bad contracts. It's like white magic and black magic. It's all magic, but you know what I mean? I don't know.
I think that there are some legitimate concerns within some sectors, especially when you talk to people who are doing grassroots work or are working with people who are at risk, like the homeless or folks like that, right? And the problem specifically relates to what gets referred to as the war on cash, the massive push of governments to digitize our money. And remove cash from society. The problem with that, it's not necessarily that it wouldn't be a problem in and of itself, because the government probably has some idea of a benefit in bringing to society, but the unintended or the intended or unintended consequence, depending on whether you're a conspiracy theorist or not, is that folks who don't have access to the technology or who don't have access to banking are being pushed further into the margins and being excluded further from being able to participate in the economy. Because the more businesses that stop taking cash, the less options these people have, right?
Yeah, well, the problem with the debt system is that you have somebody who could control the value of your money, basically, and they can siphon it out and they can use it for things. So that's you can set up something like that. And like Craig said, you could actually set up a central bank on Bitcoin, and you could track all of like the central, and that's fine, and people can do that. Okay, so even the government, if the Fed wanted to do it, and that sort of thing. But then we also have cash, but like there's a big difference between a cash economy and a debt economy. And with the debt economy, we don't actually have what's the right way of saying this? It's like it's, I don't know, but we can still do a central bank on Bitcoin. And then the benefit of that is that they actually know how much money is in circulation. Like right now, they have no idea. They just are, they have estimates of how much money is in circulation. How crazy is that, right? And so then they change the interest rate. Because if you really give them the benefit of the doubt and you say, okay, this system, the central bank system, it's so you can, in a downturn, you can basically take out a loan on your future. Like, I'm not totally pessimistic about the origination of the central bank, but I think it was a misunderstanding that people would probably abuse this system and they just keep on spending, and they wouldn't have discipline to raise interest rates and go back. And so then it always collapses eventually. So it's like there's this guy, Dave Ramsey, who's a personal finance guy, and he recommends to people that they never, ever, ever use credit cards. Now, I use a credit card, even though I understand his logic, but the credit card adds this layer of temptation where you can actually spend more than you have, and then that can get you in debt. You know what I mean? It's like a trap. And so that's kind of how I see a central bank and a government. It's like you're giving the opportunity to make mistakes. Whereas if it's a cash system and you're never using debt, you only have cash, then you actually have to innovate. You have to build. You have to, invent. You have to work. You have to, have the cash in advance of you spending it. And so, anyways, both can exist. I'm not against the debt system, but it is a kind of a form of slavery. You trap people in these things by the term that Dave Ramsey always said is the borrower is slave to the lender. So anyways, I don't know if any of that makes sense.
Yep. Here's the thing, right? Bitcoin is not programming money. If you really want to play on the words, it's programming cash, right? So it's cash.
Yeah, programmable cash. Yeah, and that was the debate we had. Somebody was saying, because money, now I gotta go look at that again. But I'm like almost delusional right now because I haven't slept so much. So,
Okay,
but yeah, programmable. There was a distinction, and we were trying to debate what's the distinction between cash and money, and so I got to go search for that in the Slack, and I'll pull it up and look at that again.
Mhm.
So speaking of money, right? My favorite person who writes the best opinions on what money is today is a guy called Brett Scott. He has an amazing series of videos on YouTube called Dispatches from the Frontiers of Money.
Can you share?
Yeah.
I like the previous video. It looks the guy is very. I think I like all the topics. Yeah, and I've never heard about this guy.
Oh yeah, so I'm subscribed to Brett Scott's Substack as well. So I'm just letting you guys know that I'm a bit of a fan of his. So it's not complete. It's not a completely unbiased recommendation. I actually really like his work, generally speaking. But he really broke down money, not just money for me, but also how money functions today within society in a way that I have not heard anybody explain it to me. And nobody in crypto that has ever talked about money has explained money to me, the relationship between what the banks, the central banks, the commercial banks, sorry, the commercial banks, there's another party. There are several issuers of money.
Federal Reserve.
Well, I guess it's the Federal Reserve is kind of the central bank for the US, right?
Oh yeah. Okay.
So you get central banks, you get the banks themselves. PayPal issues money as well. There are lots of issuers of money. It is very interesting. But anyway, yeah.
Well, originally, and see, this is the funny thing is that people don't realize is that originally money was offered by the banks, right? Like an individual bank would have its own
private banks.
Yeah, private banks. And so then, and people always think that, oh, the innovation has to come from the government, but that's actually not true. Like the CIA used Oracle as their database provider. The CIA uses Amazon. Like the government uses private companies for their business. And so if you have this, if nChain creates this new type of database that can track and issue central bank currencies on, then they can use it. And that's totally normal, but it's like the government uses Macs or the government uses Windows. Like they use private company. They don't build, the government doesn't have to build all of its own stuff separate from the outside world. You know, they don't build their own cars. They don't build their own whatever. So Bitcoin SV, because it's the only one that has enough transactions, can be the medium through which these people issue their stuff on. And that's totally fine. And that's that. They're not our enemies. But you'd have to get into the whole debate about whether it's ethical to be able to use debt or not. But I'm not going to play that game. I actually really agree with Dave Ramsey's philosophy, which is try and use cash as much as possible. And it kind of goes back to where we started with this in the beginning, as I made a promise to you. And so then I was a slave to you because I made that promise and you didn't even see it that way. And so I was overthinking it, but I made a promise to you. And so I basically took out reciprocity in advance of actually delivering on it. The alternative is that I could have just done the video and sent it to you. But because I made the promise to you in advance, then I gained a little bit of, maybe
Don't-
attention in your mind. You see what I mean?
Okay.
And so that's like taking out a debt. It's like I get to buy the car before I actually had earned the car. And so that it's just a very subtle thing. It's like the difference between a debt-based economy where you could actually take out in advance of you delivering on the thing versus a cash economy where you it's like Apple, they never talk about their future products, right? They have a culture of doing that. They never make promises. So they only deliver on things. It's like a cash. It's like I never make a promise. I only deliver things in advance of receiving. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
Now you have a psychological debt.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
It's weighing on your mind.
reflection of all this.
I relieve you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Habits,
Now
right?
you can.
Yeah, exactly.
It's how you change habits is to redirect your mind. It's all about neuroplasticity at that point, right?
Yeah.
No, but I understand what Kevin is saying. I think that we have commitments, right? We all make commitments. We have jobs that we make commitments in, and nobody likes to miss a deadline. And it's important for us to be able to honor those commitments as much as possible, right? You kind of your reputation kind of lives and dies by what people think of whether or not you stand by your word. And when you say you commit things. And so if we know this and if we think about this, then if we miss the deadline, shoof, it goes over our heads. Especially the anxiety, I'm beginning to feel just short of breath just thinking about the anxiety that I feel when I have a deadline approaching.
Okay,
Yeah,
for me,
exactly.
I think I maybe like on the opposite side because I feel like if there's a deadline, I feel more productive because I know I have to, I cannot procrastinate. I have to, deliver by that time because I made a promise. Right? So yeah, it depends on the person.
Balance, yeah, that's like balance, figuring out where things belong. Where do you allow the anxiety to kind of drive you and motivate you, and where do you allow that motivation to turn into a slice down your chest? So yeah.
Yeah, I guess I just hold myself to too high of a standard. I try and like be really reliable with my word, but then I also make promises. Like I've just been trying to have myself not make promises anymore. And but it's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I think the problem, you're probably much like me in the fact that in your mind you can go right to the end of the end of the story. So from your mind, there's this little gap, and in reality, that little gap translates into a big project over here. And so when you make a promise, you're making a promise based on, man, it's so easy, I can get there, and you can get there quickly. But in your mind, yeah, I can get there quickly, but when I have to put my fingers to the typewriter, it's not so good.
Oh, it's so true. Yeah, like there's all these ideas that I have, and like so I'll talk to somebody and it'll be like, oh dude, we could do an app for this, and or we could do this, or I could do a video for that. And I have all these ideas and I'm not promising that I'm gonna do them, but it comes off like that sometimes. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, so I try not to talk about, it's a habit that I'm trying to do. It's just not, it's like what Apple does. Don't talk about future products. Just if you have an idea, keep it secret, build it, and then deliver it. So, but I just like to brainstorm with people sometimes. But sometimes when I'm talking about what's possible, it seems like I'm actually going to do it. But maybe I'm not.
That's a good point. That's actually a really good point, because when you come into brainstorming, you need to allow yourself to kind of go down the paths in the journey without overwhelming yourself to a point of saying, yeah, we're going to do this tomorrow. But at the same time, it's like you have to be able to see that end in order to know where you're going. You know, that you have to know where that finish line is. So
yeah. All right, you guys.
I think, yeah. Anything else to add on? I think we have a most controversial episode ever. So yeah, it's always good to discuss. I think
it was great. We discussed a lot and I cleared up and I had a lot of new ideas. It was really great. I'm just so exhausted because I haven't slept that well for the past week. So, and I'm like feeling my health going. So I need to go to the beach and relax a little bit.
Yeah, take it easy.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate the invite. And
thanks for coming, Tim. You can come anytime you want.
Absolutely, I'll be back.
Okay. And you and I don't know. I feel you and Stefan maybe have a more commonality than the rest of us because you've been through the home kind of like a tech evolution thing.
Yeah, if you guys go back in the video and get my engagement, well, let's connect. I'll give you a demo of our platform where we're at. Joey, we just posted another release. We're 10,000. I mean, we're moving at 10,000 miles an hour right now. So things are moving fast and it's good. And we're getting ready to do our first 4 smart contracts inside of the platform, and we'll be releasing that to the production environment within a couple of weeks. So it's exciting for us.
Okay,
Nice,
fantastic.
nice.
Yeah, we'd love to hear more update. Oh, when you just deliver it, that's ship. We can all play with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Nice connect with me, and thanks again. Take care, guys.
Okay, thank you guys.
All right.
Enjoy the
Thanks,
rest of the day.
everybody. Bye-bye.
All right.
Good night, Stefan.
Likewise.
Enjoy the day. Okay, bye-bye.
All right. See ya.
See you.